Pawn shop employees of Reddit, what is something people think is collectible or worth a lot of money, but is actually relatively worthless? Until very recently, I worked in a thrift store, which I'd argue is close enough that I feel qualified to weigh in here. Old newspapers and magazines, even of very historically significant events, are generally worthless. I threw out several newspapers about the moon landing and JFK's assassination throughout my year and a half at that job. People tend to think those were two of the biggest news headlines of that generation. The original papers must be worth a lot 50 years later. Well, they aren't. Because when JFK died, and when Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, everyone in the world knew those moments were going in the history books, so everyone held onto those newspapers. Even today, there are still a ton of them out there, in very good condition, so they aren't worth much. All that to say, there definitely are some old newspapers that are worth a lot of money. But they're going to be the moments that we look back on as defining moments in history, but weren't fully appreciated in the moment. For example, a newspaper about Coca-Cola being sold by its founder to a group of investors in 1919 recently sold for almost $7,000. That might not be considered a defining moment in history even today, but it's still worth more than any moon landing newspapers. Because why the hell would somebody save that Coke newspaper for a century? Mint $2 bills. If you look up $2 bill, one of the first things you see is people selling them for thousands. Based on the thread this comment is in, it wouldn't surprise you that they're still worth $2. Not a pawn shop employee, used to work for me, a wholesaler that bought gold and silver. Except in extremely rare circumstances, your piece of jewelry is worth the gold value and whatever the size of the diamonds are. They're probably going to try to pay you half that. Watches are a little better, but only if they're something like a Rolex, Chopard, or Cartier. Also, if you sell or pawn, you're looking at about half an item's value at best. Old TVs. A guy I knew would advertise that he bought old TVs. Old people would call him and let him into their houses to get the TV. It was just a ploy to get into their house. He would then look around and offer them lowball prices for any antique bric-a-brac that he spotted, like 50 cents for Hummel statues. He'd buy their TV and dump it somewhere, and make a mint selling their actually valuable things. Not a pawn shop employee, but an amateur numismatist. Your coins aren't worth shit. I have people asking me about Buffalo nickels and Wheaties all the time. Eisenhower half dollars and Susan B. Anthony dollars. Just because you haven't seen a coin before doesn't mean it's rare. Come to me with something good and I'll give you good news. One of my friends found an 1858 half dime at a yard sale and I lost my shit over it. Not super valuable, but a nice rare find. Not a pawn shop employee, but I buy and sell old paper money from around the world to and from collectors. I have so many stories. People don't realize that just because it is from 1923 and says 1 million mark on it, that doesn't mean it's with a fortune. 1 million mark by the end of 1923 was less than pennies, and notes just like that were used as wallpaper because there was so much of it printed. Another very common one is a group, usually between 5 to 30 pieces, that came from Grandpa who fought in World War II, often in the Pacific Theater. An assortment typically includes the Philippines, Japan, China and other countries of that region. They all think they have something valuable, but they don't realize that Grandpa literally picked up some notes from the floor that were worthless after the war, and just about every service member at the time did the same. How I wish those guys would have had the foresight, and time, to look for better material, the things they could have brought back. But of course, even at the time, many of those notes were already rare, and most would have been priced, even at face value, beyond the average service member's salary. So they brought back the notes they could pick up for pennies or less, and even now, 70 plus years later, they are usually worth just that. Not a pawn shop specifically, but I do own and run an indie video game shop. I deal with this every single day. People bring in their PS3, Xbox 360, and Wii games, among others, expecting something close to what they paid for them 10 years ago. GameStop pays less than 50 cents for the vast majority of games for that generation of games. I make a point to do more because I want people to bring their stuff to me and not feel too ripped off, but the reality is that 90% of games for those systems are going to rot on my shelves forever at $3 each. The Wii alone has roughly 2,000 games for it. There are maybe 50 worth a damn. This goes for older consoles as well. Most Atari 2600 games are worthless. I could build a fort with all of the copies of Combat that I have and will never, ever sell. Nintendo is a little bit different, but only for beloved franchises or truly rare games. People also don't seem to understand that I don't run a charity. If I'm going to put $5 on a game, you're getting $1 cash, $2 store credit. If you want full price, sell it yourself. Not exactly worthless, but the number of people who get their gold/jewelry appraised or think that because they paid $2K for their engagement ring that it is worth $2K and are disappointed and sometimes offended by the actual scrap value is astronomical. It's also always fun to have to tell someone that half or more of the diamonds in their cluster rings are fake. I attempted a cash for gold shop around a decade ago. Not really the exact same, but we did quite a bit of pawning. 1. Diamonds. They're not worth shit. They have the single highest depreciation just by buying them that I can think of. At one point the owner told a particularly difficult woman, yes, you got ripped off. This doesn't mean you can rip me off. 2. Old toys from the 1980s. Unless it's particularly rare, collectible or otherwise valuable. It isn't. We're also not going to go to the effort of finding a collector. And clean the fucking spiders out before bringing it in. 3. Comic books. You need to go before around 1965, the item needs to be completely pristine, the slightest dog-earing, scuffing or fading makes it more or less worthless. 4. Watches. A good high-end fashion watch can cost you hundreds, even thousands. It won't sell for that. You're paying for the profit margin needed to keep a low-volume business running. 5. Most fossils/minerals/geodes/crystals/etc. Unless it's a Lagerstatt, articulated, vertebrate fossil, it's not worth a thing. It also needs to be fully documented down to the exact place it was taken from. 6. Franklin Mint, or other, collectibles. If silver, they have a basic foundry value, but pewter, brass and bronze don't have any value. This would offend people when we'd wait and look up the silver value. It was not great. Beanie Babies. Sorry mom. I don't work at a pawn shop but I volunteer at a thrift store. People often donate clothes they've unsuccessfully tried to sell before at flea markets so they still have those price tags on. No, you won't get €20 for kid's winter coat if it has massive stains and holes in them. Anything that is advertised as collectible, isn't. My mom died last year, left a bunch of collectibles. The estate buyer had a comment, he said they talk about each collectible being unique, but when they release a new set of plates, cards, dolls, toys, whatever, every year, the supply for the collectible is always high, and so the price is low for the new stuff, but especially the older stuff. Mom left thousands of Hallmark Christmas ornaments. Probably bought for $10 each, on average. I will attempt to sell them for $3 each. Hundreds of Star Wars/Star Trek toys. Same, I am hoping for 1/3 the original price. Not a pawn shop worker but many people think that misprints of thing or errors in the way something is made means that it is worth more. That isn't true, at least with my experience, especially with Beanie Babies, people tend to believe that but it's not true. Worked in an antique shop for a while. It was always heartbreaking bringing the news that people's Art Deco furniture brings less than a new one from IKEA. Or that their family heirloom is just trash their great-grandparents naively bought thinking it's of high value. Most people underestimate how much it costs to bring even slightly damaged items to resellable condition. And people also highly underestimate how many crooks were around the time where now antique items were produced. Think you got a bronze statue there? Nope. Just tin with bronze paint. Genuine sterling silver spoons? Nope, barely even a low-quality silver coat. A few years ago a local newspaper interviewed a CEO of some tech company who told that he still uses his old Nokia 3310 because it's reliable and unhackable. This caused people to try to sell their 20-year-old phones for hundreds of euros. Close, porno shop owner. Amazing people think their run-of-the-mill VHS pornos are worth anything. And hashtag X200B. I just calmly look at the guy and go. I have a warehouse with over 80,000 VHS tapes. You want 500 of them? You can have them for nothing. Just take as many as you can fit in your car. Smile. Barbie collector here. Your random dolls from your childhood that are naked and have crumpled hair are worth about 50 cents. Only certain ones maintain value at such a poor state, and even then only certain ones are worth money. And that's in box dolls. Lightly used Playboy magazine collection apparently. I found an ad on Craigslist for about £85 of near mint condition Playboys from the early 90s, almost complete annuals, for $10 and thought it would be an easy flip. I go the pawn shop and haul the whole crate in, and the guy takes a quick glance and says $10 or $15 store credit. I should have asked before taking them from my trunk. Now I have an entire camping cooler full of nudie mags in my closet and I have no idea what to do with them, other than browse the articles and sell them individually on eBay whenever the featured celebrity dies. So far I have received $6 for a 1992 Robin Williams issue, WOOT. Authentic priceless Civil War dolls, which turn out to be liquor-lad liquor bottles from the 1970s. Turns out Grandma Bambi had a secret drinking problem. I ran pawn shops for years. Only true thing I was interested in buying was gold. Paid 50% of spot on that day. Made more money on loan pickups. I had about 70% pickup return on items. Last shop I ran I had about a $400k loan balance, pulling in 20% interest every month. $80,000 a month in loans and about $25k a month in sales. 25k being holiday months. So yeah, never once was I ever interested in any worthless shit you were not going to come back and pick up. Just saying you wanted to sell it, and I wasn't interested in having some shit set on my shelves for months. I was only interested in making loans and buying gold. I would loan on anything if you were coming back to pick it up. I would loan $5 on a garden hose if it meant I got that $1 interest back. I've sold/flipped collectibles online. Sports cards, comic books, toys and action figures. 99% trash. Stamps are a 1 in a million shot. I did okay with coins, but people overvalue them more so than anything else. But the most annoying thing were those damn Disney videos. A few years back some outlet published a clickbait article about these supposedly super valuable Disney home videos, and we were absolutely besieged with calls and emails from people who were convinced they were sitting on a gold mine. Wow, that article said these are going for $5,000 and up. I have 15. That's $75,000. Nah, not really. What I'm getting out of this is a list of stuff to go to a pawn shop for if I want to buy one. Comics wanna know if your comics have value. 1. Is it older than 1990? 99.999% of 90s comics are worthless as they were so mass produced. 2. Is it Marvel or DC? It's very rare for the smaller imprints to be worth anything. 3. Is it in mint condition? 4. Is it a first appearance of a popular character? Number 4 surprises most people, as things like the new Teen Titans issue 1 wasn't the first appearance of the modern Teen Titans, it was DC Presents 26. If you answer no to any of these questions, assume it's worthless. Not a pawn shop, but damn near close enough. I worked in an antique thrift store for almost 6 years. I've seen and heard just about everything. Solid tip: your personal attachment to your shit doesn't equate its actual value. Even if it's your grandmother's favorite chair, it's still just a chair. My buddy worked at a pawn shop for a decade, and he always used to say that the only things you will get decent money for were good tools and good guns. Not a pawn shop employee, but dealing with this now with my grandma. Precious moments, the little ceramic cutesy doll sort of things. Think Christmas ornaments but done as little statue figurines. Now that grandma/grandpa are running out of money in their retirement, they asked my dad to put them up on eBay, expecting they'd be making bank back on their investment. My dad put up a whole plastic bin of them, so 50 to 100 or so, each of which was probably bought for greater than $20. Out of the whole bin, all but 4 failed to sell, and of those 4 the most expensive one went for something like $5. They were angry and insisted that my dad must have done something wrong. They spent tens of thousands over the years buying them, and they should easily be worth several times that. He showed them page after page of entries on eBay for what was selling, if anything was. They insisted that he just wasn't doing it right, so my dad stopped helping. I know they've tried taking it to pawn shops with even less success. Not a pawn shop employee, but I'd just like to say something. I have hoarding tendencies, and tend to not want to get rid of anything because what if I want it later, or what if it's worth money someday? I've been working on becoming a minimalist, and it's really freeing, but that nagging doubt is still there. This thread helps to get rid of those doubts. Unless you're going to invest a serious amount of time into real collecting, researching and finding out what is truly valuable, then it just isn't worth it. You'll get more enjoyment out of those toys/clothes/dishes/etc. if you just use them. So unless you plan to make collecting your job or a serious hobby, only buy what you plan to actually use, and have a great time using it. You'll be happier in the long run for enjoying the things you have, and also for not letting things you aren't enjoying clutter up your space. I'm very glad to know that I'm not missing out on much. I am going to be trashed for this. And #X200B. Video games. I used to do work for GameStop, contract programmer that worked on store systems. Why do they offer you so little for your used games? Because that is what they are worth. And #X200B. But, you shout at me, they sell the used one for $30 and only offer $5. Surely that proves my used game is worth more. And it would be, if you were the only person trying to unload that old game. Unfortunately, they already have thousands of the things, most of which they will probably never be able to sell. The fact that you get anything at all for most of the games you trade is just a loss leader to get you to spend money in the store. They are /worthless/. While remodeling a house, I found a tin of unused Trojan condoms that some panicked and unlucky teenager shoved through a knothole in the floor in the late 1920s. Yes, I found a collector online. I think they paid me $75. I used that money to buy new condoms, and they in turn saved me tons of money.